The alien billionaire Zyrek Talon was known across galaxies for his wealth, power, and pride. His empire stretched from mining moons to trading stations orbiting distant stars. But for all his riches, he was cold and lonely, living in a mansion that felt more like a museum than a home. After months away on a business trip, Zyrek decided to return earlier than planned. No one knew he was coming back. His assistants thought he would be gone for another week. That night, his massive ship glided silently through the city skies and landed on the private landing pad above his glass palace. As he entered his mansion, the automatic lights flickered on, revealing shining corridors and polished walls. Everything looked perfect, at least it should have been. But then he heard something unusual. A sound. Small, distant, and rhythmic. Clink, clink, clink. It echoed faintly through the silent halls. Zyrek frowned. At this hour, no one should be working. The staff had gone home. Only security drones were supposed to patrol the area. Yet there it was again, metal striking metal, followed by a quiet sigh. He followed the sound, walking silently, his long cloak brushing the marble floor. The noise grew louder as he reached the maintenance area, a place he rarely visited. The heavy door was slightly open and inside faint light shimmered. Zyrek peeked through the gap. What he saw made him pause. There, kneeling beside a broken service bot, was a human, a janitor, a man wearing a faded uniform with a name tag that read Ethan. The man's hands were covered in grease, his face tired, his eyes focused. He worked slowly but with great care, using simple tools. Around him lay scattered pieces of alien machinery, complex circuits, glowing wires, and damaged parts that even trained engineers refused to fix. Zyrek's eyes narrowed. What is a janitor doing here touching my bots? He thought. Anger flickered inside him. Humans were rare in his world, most seen as weak laborers fit only for cleaning and low tasks. But this one seemed different. There was confidence in his movements, like someone who understood what he was doing. Zyrek stayed hidden in the shadows, watching closely. Ethan adjusted a connector, wiped sweat from his forehead, and whispered to himself, "Come on. Don't fail me now." His voice was tired but calm. The bot suddenly whirred to life, lights flashing blue. It rolled forward, performing a perfect system check. Ethan smiled faintly. "There you go, little buddy," he murmured, patting the metal shell. "You just needed a bit of care." Zyrek blinked in disbelief. That machine had been broken for months. His best engineers said it couldn't be fixed without expensive replacement parts. Yet this human, this janitor, had repaired it with nothing but scraps and patience. The billionaire's anger faded into curiosity. Who was this man? How did he learn to do that? Zyrek could tell it wasn't luck. There was skill, logic, and heart in every move. The human's hands trembled slightly, showing exhaustion. Then a small hologram flickered to life beside him. It was a child's message, a little girl smiling. "Good night, Daddy, I love you." Ethan looked at it and his tired eyes softened. "Good night, Lila," he whispered. "Daddy's almost done." He kissed the hologram softly before shutting it down. Something shifted in Zyrek's chest. He didn't understand the feeling. Was it respect? Or guilt? He had always believed emotions made one weak. Yet here was a man with almost nothing, working late at night, fixing things others gave up on. All for love of his child. For a long moment, Zyrek just stood there, watching in silence. The great alien billionaire, feared, respected, untouchable, felt small in the face of simple human dedication. He stepped back quietly, making sure not to be seen. The door closed behind him without a sound. As he walked away, the clinking sounds resumed, steady, hopeful, alive. The mansion felt warmer somehow, filled with a new energy. Zyrek couldn't sleep that night. The image of the human janitor fixing the broken bot with bare hands kept returning to his mind. For the first time in years, Zyrek Talon didn't think about profit or power. He thought about the man who worked in silence, the little girl waiting at home, and the strange, unshakable strength of the human heart. He whispered to himself, "Perhaps not all humans are what I thought." That night marked the beginning of something the galaxy would never forget. The next morning, Zyrek Talon sat in his glass office high above the clouds, watching the sunrise over the alien city, but his thoughts were far away. He couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen the night before. The human janitor working alone, repairing a machine even alien engineers had failed to fix. It made no sense. Humans were supposed to be slow, emotional, and fragile. Yet that man had worked with the patience of a master and the heart of a father. Zirek opened the files on his staff. It didn't take long to find the man's record.
Ethan Cole, human, age 36, occupation, maintenance worker.
Education, mechanical technician, pre-war. No criminal record, widower. One daughter, Lila Cole, age 7. Residence, worker quarters, District 12. Salary, barely enough to survive. Zirek leaned back in his chair. So he had once been an engineer. That explained the skill, but not the spirit. Most who lost everything in the war gave up. This man hadn't. He kept working quietly without anyone noticing. Zirek's curiosity grew stronger. He decided not to reveal that he had returned early. He wanted to see what this human did when no one was watching. Later that night, Zirek moved silently through the corridors again. He didn't call guards or activate cameras. He wanted to see the truth with his own eyes. And just like before, the soft clinking of tools led him to the same place, the maintenance room. The light was dim and Ethan was there again, kneeling beside another damaged service bot. Zirek stood hidden in the shadows, watching. Ethan's movements were slower tonight, his hands trembling from exhaustion. His face showed the kind of tiredness that no rest could fix. Still, he kept working. The bot sparked, hissed, then shut down. Instead of cursing, Ethan sighed quietly and whispered, "Okay, let's try again." His voice was calm, gentle, almost like he was speaking to a living being. Minutes passed. Then the bot flickered back to life. Its eyes glowed bright green. It stood upright and beeped cheerfully. Ethan smiled, a soft, real smile. "Good job," he whispered. Zirek found himself smiling too, though he quickly hid it. He couldn't understand why this scene felt so powerful. Maybe it was because he saw something he hadn't seen in decades, care. Ethan didn't work for money. He worked because he wanted things to live again. Even broken metal. Suddenly the door opened. A tall alien supervisor entered, holding a data pad. "Ethan, what are you doing here so late again?" The alien barked. Ethan stood, wiping his hands. "Just fixing the cleaning units, sir." They weren't responding. "You're not paid for extra hours," the alien scolded. "And you're wasting resources." "Those bots were marked for disposal." Ethan lowered his head. "They still work, sir. They just need time." The supervisor snorted. "You humans never learn when to stop trying." He left with a grunt, leaving the door wide open. Zyrek's jaw tightened. That tone, the same arrogance he used on others. Now he heard it from someone else, and it didn't sound so strong anymore. It sounded cruel. He waited until Ethan was alone again, then stepped out of the shadows. Ethan froze when he saw the tall, elegant alien. His eyes widened. "Sir, I didn't know you were back." Zirek said nothing at first. He walked closer, his glowing eyes watching the repaired bot. "You fixed it," he said simply. Ethan nodded nervously. "Yes, sir. I just thought it could still be useful." Zirek tilted his head. "Do you know what that machine costs?" Ethan hesitated. "More than my yearly pay, I suppose." "And yet," Zirek continued, "you repaired it with scrap pieces and patience." Ethan gave a small shrug. "Machines are like people. Sometimes they just need someone to believe they can work again." Zirek went silent. Those words hit deeper than he expected. Machines, people, maybe even himself. Had anyone believed in him since his wife's death? Had anyone cared for something more than gain or power? He looked at Ethan again. "You're an engineer. Used to be," Ethan said softly. "Before the war took everything. Now I just clean floors, and why stay?" Zirek asked. "You could leave, find work elsewhere." Ethan smiled sadly. "Because my daughter likes to see the stars from your windows. She says your mansion looks like a sky full of dreams." Zirek froze. For a moment he couldn't speak. This human wasn't just fixing machines. He was holding his small world together, one broken bolt at a time. He turned away before Ethan could see the emotion in his eyes. "Go home, Mr. Cole," Zirek said quietly. "Get some rest," Ethan nodded. "Thank you, sir." He left with his small toolkit, shoulders heavy but heart steady. When he was gone, Zirek looked at the glowing bot once more. It blinked twice, then played a soft melody, a tune Zirek's late wife used to hum. He didn't know how, but Ethan had somehow repaired the sound module too. For a long time, the alien billionaire stood alone in that room, listening to the song. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like the richest being in the galaxy. He just felt human. The next morning, the entire mansion buzzed with quiet confusion. The staff whispered to each other, nervous and unsure. The great alien billionaire, Zirek Talon, had returned home early, without warning, without message, without reason. His mood was unreadable, his presence heavy. Everyone felt it. The janitors, cooks, and guards stood straighter, fearful of what he might say or do. In the grand hall, Zirek stood near the crystal windows, staring at the floating city outside. His mind was restless. He kept remembering Ethan, the human janitor who fixed machines that were considered worthless. Something about that man's calm honesty had unsettled him deeply. In his world, everything had a price. Yet Ethan had worked not for reward, but because he cared. Zirek turned to his assistant, an alien woman named Riala. "Gather the maintenance team," he ordered quietly. All of them. Moments later, the workers stood before him in a line, nervous, silent, afraid to even breathe. Ethan was among them, his uniform still stained with grease, his expression humble but steady. Zirek's golden eyes studied them all, his tone sharp and calm. "Last night," Zirek began, "someone entered restricted areas in my mansion without permission." His voice echoed through the hall, cold and commanding. "Someone touched my personal property. I want to know who it was." The staff shifted uneasily. Some looked down, others held their breath. Ethan raised his head slowly, his voice quiet but firm. "It was me, sir." Gasps filled the room. Even Riala's eyes widened. No one expected a human to speak so directly to a billionaire. Zirek stepped closer. "You admit it?" "Yes, sir," Ethan said. "The bots in your private corridor were broken. I didn't want the staff blamed for the system error, so I stayed behind to fix them." Zirek's expression didn't change. "You disobeyed rules. You entered areas closed to staff. You used resources without permission." Ethan's jaw tightened, but his tone remained respectful. "Yes, sir. I know I shouldn't have, but I couldn't ignore what was broken." The room went silent. Zirek could feel the honesty in his voice, no fear, no excuses. Just truth. The other workers stared at Ethan, stunned by his courage. Riala whispered, "Sir, shall I dismiss him?" Zirek raised a hand. "No, not yet." He turned back to Ethan. "You repaired systems that even trained engineers failed to fix. How?" Ethan looked down for a moment. "Sometimes things just need time, sir. You listen to the sound they make. You watch how they react. Machines talk if you pay attention." Zirek studied him quietly. "Machines talk?" He repeated, almost amused. Ethan nodded. "Everything broken has a story. You just have to care enough to hear it." Those words sank deep into Zirek's heart. The great Tycoon, surrounded by advanced technology, had never thought of it that way. For him, broken meant useless. For this human, broken meant not yet finished. To test him further, Zirek's eyes narrowed slightly. "Tell me, Mr. Cole," he said, "if you care so much about broken things, why are you still one of them? Why remain a janitor?" Ethan paused. The question stung, but his voice stayed calm. "Because fixing what's broken doesn't make you whole, sir. It just helps you remember that nothing stays lost forever. Even people." Zirek turned away to hide his reaction. That answer, so simple yet powerful, felt like a mirror reflecting his own hidden wounds. He dismissed the staff with a wave, but his gaze lingered on Ethan. Later that day, Zirek summoned him again, this time to his private workshop, a room few ever entered. Ethan hesitated at the door, unsure if this was a trap or an opportunity. Inside, Zirek pointed to a tall, half-built machine covered in dust. "My best engineers couldn't finish this," he said. "It's a memory core for my late wife's personal AI. Can you repair it?" Ethan looked at the device, eyes softening. "I can try," he said. "But I'll need time." Zirek folded his arms. "You'll have it. But know this, if you fail, you'll lose your job." Ethan nodded without hesitation. "Then I'll fail trying." Hours passed as he worked silently. Zirek watched, pretending not to care, but every click of a tool drew him closer. Ethan's hands moved with gentle purpose. He spoke softly to the machine as if comforting it. "You're not gone," he whispered. "Just asleep." Finally, the lights flickered. A soft female voice spoke, a recording Zirek hadn't heard in decades. "Hello, my love." Zirek froze. His throat tightened. The room filled with warmth and sadness. Ethan stepped back quietly, not saying a word. For the first time in years, the mighty alien billionaire felt tears forming in his eyes. He blinked them away quickly, turning to hide his face. "Get some rest," Zirek said in a trembling voice. You've done enough. Ethan nodded and quietly left the room. Zyrek stood there alone, surrounded by machines and silence. The human had passed every test, not of skill but of heart. And for the first time, Zyrek began to wonder. Maybe it wasn't humans who were weak. Maybe it was his kind who had forgotten what strength truly meant. The next morning began like any other in the Talon mansion. Cold lights, silent corridors, and the hum of machines working perfectly on schedule. But for Zyrek Talon, something had changed deep inside. He couldn't shake the image of the human janitor standing before him, honest and unbroken. The man had repaired what no alien expert could. Even more than that, he had awakened memories Zyrek thought were lost forever. Zyrek sat in his private study reviewing reports. Each screen glowed with data about profits, ship routes, and investments across the galaxy. Yet none of it mattered. His thoughts returned to Ethan Cole. He opened the maintenance logs, scrolling through endless lines of updates. Each one showed perfect performance. The cleaning bots, drones, and systems were running better than ever. But something strange appeared at the bottom of the log. Notes. Handwritten human notes. Zyrek leaned closer. Ethan had written simple words like adjusted circuit timing manually and improved energy flow by bypassing faulty design. It wasn't just repair, it was innovation. The bots weren't only fixed. They were smarter, faster, and more efficient. Zyrek's scientists had spent years trying to improve these models, and this human janitor had done it in silence without recognition, with tools made from scrap. The alien billionaire felt a spark of pride mixed with disbelief.
How? He whispered to himself.
How did a human do this? He called his assistant Riala. Bring me every detail about Ethan Cole's work history, he ordered. Minutes later, she returned with a slim data pad. Sir, the man was an engineer before the war, she said. He lost his home, his wife, everything. After that, he refused higher work. Said he preferred quiet jobs, janitorial or repair. Refused? Zyrek asked, puzzled. Yes, Riala nodded. He told his first employer, I'd rather fix broken things than build new ones. Zyrek dismissed her and stared out the window, watching flying ships move across the glowing skyline. He couldn't understand this human logic. To give up ambition, to choose repair over creation, why? But somewhere in his heart he already knew the answer. Sometimes broken things needed gentle hands, not grand plans. That evening, Zyrek took a bold step. He disguised himself in a plain maintenance cloak and went down to the workers' level. The air was warm and filled with the sound of machines clanking, gears spinning, and workers talking quietly. Ethan was there, crouched under a glowing console, his hands moving fast as he fine-tuned a system core. Zyrek watched in silence. Ethan spoke softly to another worker, a young alien boy. See, you don't just follow the manual. You feel what's wrong, he said. Machines have rhythm. When it's off, you listen. The boy nodded, eyes wide. But humans can't hear what we hear, he said shyly. Ethan smiled. Maybe, but we can feel it. Sometimes that's enough. Zyrek felt an unfamiliar warmth inside him. Feel it. That phrase echoed like music. No data, no algorithms, just intuition and heart. He finally stepped forward. Impressive, Zyrek said, his deep voice breaking the quiet. Ethan turned quickly, surprised. Sir, I didn't see you there. Zyrek walked closer, his expression calm but sharp. You've been improving my systems, he said. Without permission, Ethan hesitated. Yes, sir. I didn't mean to offend. The bots were unstable. I just wanted them to work better. Zyrek crossed his arms. And if something had gone wrong? Ethan met his gaze. Then I'd fix that too. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt heavy, yet charged. Zyrek could see no fear in the man's eyes, only determination. Finally, Zyrek broke the silence. You think like an engineer, not a janitor? Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe, sir. But janitors see what others overlook. That simple line made Zyrek pause. It was true. The higher one rose, the less they noticed what lay beneath their feet. And this human, this single father, saw everything. Zyrek gestured toward the console. Show me what you did. Ethan demonstrated carefully, explaining his process in simple words. He had redirected power flow, stabilized unstable circuits, and even created an energy feedback loop, something even Zyrek's own scientists struggled with. Every step showed creativity born not from privilege but from necessity. When Ethan finished, Zyrek stood in silence. You've done more with scrap metal than my labs have done with millions of credits, he said softly. Ethan shook his head. I just fix things, sir. No, Zyrek said firmly. You understand them. Before Ethan could respond, Zyrek added, From now on you report directly to me. Ethan's eyes widened. Sir, I'm just a janitor. Not anymore, Zyrek interrupted. You're my systems advisor. Ethan blinked in disbelief. Why me? Zyrek's gaze softened. Because you fix more than machines, Mr. Cole. You fix what others give up on. For a brief second, Ethan didn't know what to say. Then he nodded slowly. I'll do my best, sir. As Ethan returned to his work, Zyrek turned away, hiding the faint smile forming on his face. For the first time in years, he felt something new, a strange hope rising inside him. The alien billionaire had found a human who could not only repair his machines but perhaps mend something deeper, the cracks within his own cold, empty heart. Days passed and the atmosphere inside Zyrek Talon's mansion began to change. The once cold, silent place now carried a new rhythm. Machines hummed smoother, lights glowed softer, and even the workers smiled a little more. The reason was simple. A human janitor named Ethan Cole. What began as secret repair work had turned into a quiet revolution of spirit. Zyrek watched him from a distance many times. The human never complained, never asked for extra pay, never sought praise. He worked with focus and heart, always humming softly as if the sound kept the machines alive. The billionaire, known for his arrogance, found himself drawn to that humility. It reminded him of a time before his wealth had built walls around his soul. One evening, Zyrek called Ethan to his private chamber, a place few aliens had ever entered, let alone a human. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Ethan stepped inside, wiping his hands nervously on his uniform. The room was vast and filled with golden light, lined with floating holograms of galaxies, ships, and inventions beyond imagination. Zyrek stood near the window, gazing out at the city. You've done well, he said without turning around. Thank you, sir, Ethan replied quietly. I've watched your work, Zyrek continued. You don't just repair. You create. You make things function better than they ever did before. Ethan looked down. I only do what needs to be done, sir. Zyrek finally turned to face him. Do you know what you've accomplished? You've improved systems that my best engineers couldn't fix. You've done it with patience, instinct, and no resources. You're wasted as a janitor. Ethan stayed silent. His eyes held calm, not pride. Zyrek stepped closer. I'm offering you a new position, he said firmly. Head of Systems Engineering. High pay, residence upgrade, benefits for your daughter. You'll have everything you need. For a moment, Ethan didn't speak. The offer hung in the air like something out of a dream. He could see his daughter smiling, living better, free from hunger and struggle. But then his smile faded. Sir, he said softly, I can't accept. Zyrek blinked, surprised. Can't? Or won't? Ethan took a slow breath. I'm grateful, truly, but I didn't fix your machines for a promotion. I did it because they were broken, and I couldn't just walk past them. Zyrek's brows furrowed. You're refusing comfort for pride? Ethan shook his head. Not pride, sir. Purpose. He looked up, meeting Zyrek's golden eyes. I lost everything once, my wife, my world, my name. I learned that fixing things gives me peace. It reminds me that no matter how shattered something looks, there's always hope if you keep trying. Zyrek went silent. The truth in Ethan's voice hit harder than any argument. He saw no greed in the human's face, only quiet strength, the kind Zyrek's kind had long forgotten. Tell me about your daughter, Zyrek said after a pause. Ethan smiled faintly. Lila, she's 7. Smart, curious, and a bit too honest. His eyes softened. She thinks stars are tiny holes in the dark sky that let heaven's light shine through. Zyrek felt something warm stir in his chest. You speak of her like she's your universe. She is, Ethan said simply. Everything I fix for her. Because when she sees something broken, she doesn't cry. She asks, Daddy, can we fix it? And I never want to tell her no. Zyrek turned away, trying to hide the emotion forming behind his calm face. You're different, Mr. Cole, he murmured. Your kind. Surprises me, Ethan smiled. Humans aren't perfect, sir. But we try. That's what keeps us human. Zyrek didn't answer. Instead, he walked to a nearby desk and picked up a small object, a broken silver music box. Its design was ancient, delicate, and full of dust. He handed it to Ethan. "This belonged to my wife," Zyrek said quietly. "It hasn't played in years." Ethan took it carefully, holding it as if it were alive. "I'll do my best, sir." As the human left the room, Zyrek stared after him. He realized the truth. Ethan wasn't just repairing machines. He was repairing people. He was repairing him. Later that night, Zyrek sat alone in silence, hearing the faint sound of tools echoing down the hall. For the first time, the sound didn't bother him. It comforted him, and when the music box finally played again, soft, trembling notes filling the air, Zyrek closed his eyes. He understood now why the human had refused wealth. Some things couldn't be bought. They had to be earned, through heart, loss, and love. Morning sunlight poured through the tall glass walls of Zyrek Talon's mansion, casting golden patterns across the floor. The once silent corridors now hummed with a quiet warmth. Machines no longer beeped in sharp rhythms, they moved smoothly, almost in harmony. The alien billionaire had noticed the change, though he hadn't realized what caused it. It wasn't the upgraded circuits or the efficient repairs. It was the human touch, something his empire had never known before. Ethan Cole arrived early that day, carrying a small lunchbox and holding his daughter's hand. Little Lila had bright brown eyes and a soft smile that seemed to light up the cold metallic hallways.
She had begged to come with him, and since her school was closed for the day, he couldn't say no.
"Just stay quiet and don't touch anything," Ethan whispered. "Yes, Daddy," she said, her voice full of excitement as they walked through the shining halls that stretched like a dream. Zyrek, in his private observatory, noticed them through the security feed. At first he frowned. Children were never allowed inside his property. But something made him pause. The little girl wasn't afraid. She looked around with pure wonder, her eyes wide, touching the air as if she could feel the magic of technology all around her. For reasons he didn't understand, Zyrek couldn't look away. Ethan began working on a malfunctioning air recycler. His sleeves rolled up while Lila sat nearby on the clean floor, drawing shapes on her datapad. Every few minutes she looked up and asked, "Daddy, what does that button do?" Ethan smiled. "That one helps everyone breathe better," he said. Zyrek's eyes softened as he listened through the intercom. A human explaining technology not through logic but care. It was such a simple thing, yet it stirred something deep inside him. A few minutes later, Lila's soft voice echoed across the hall. "Daddy, is this the place where stars live?" Ethan chuckled. "No, sweetheart. But sometimes when I look up at the ceiling lights, I like to pretend they are." Her innocent laughter filled the room. The sound was so gentle, so real, it made Zyrek rise from his seat. He left his office and walked silently down the long corridor, following the sound. When he appeared in the doorway, Ethan froze. "Sir, I didn't know you were coming." Zyrek's glowing eyes shifted toward the little girl. "And this is—" Ethan straightened nervously. "My daughter, sir. I'm sorry, I had no one to watch her today. I'll take her home if she's not allowed here." Lila stood quickly, clutching her small lunchbox. "I'm sorry, mister," she said softly. "I just wanted to see where my daddy works." Zyrek stared at her for a long moment. The great alien billionaire, feared across half the galaxy, didn't know how to respond to a child's apology. Finally, his expression softened. "It's all right," he said slowly. "You may stay. Just don't break anything." Lila smiled brightly. "Thank you, mister." Ethan let out a quiet sigh of relief. He turned back to his work, but Zyrek didn't leave. Instead, he watched silently, curiously, as the human father and daughter moved together like a small team. When Ethan's tool slipped, Lila held the light steady for him. When the machine beeped successfully, she clapped softly. Zyrek felt something stir in him, a feeling he had buried long ago. He remembered the days when his own mate had smiled at him the same way, before war and greed had taken her from him. When Ethan finished, he turned to Lila. "See? It's fixed now." Lila nodded proudly. "You always fix everything, Daddy." Zyrek stepped closer. "She's right," he said quietly. "You fix more than machines, Mr. Cole." Ethan looked up, surprised by the warmth in the alien's tone. Zyrek knelt slightly to meet the girl's gaze. "And you, young one, you make this place brighter." Lila's smile widened. "You're nice for a big alien." For a moment, everyone froze, then Zyrek laughed. Really laughed. It was a sound no one in the mansion had ever heard before. The staff peeked from afar, whispering in disbelief. The cold, emotionless billionaire was laughing with a human child. Later that evening, as Ethan and Lila prepared to leave, Zirek called out, "Mr. Cole?" Ethan turned. "Bring her again sometime," Zirek said. "This mansion could use more light," Ethan smiled. "Thank you, sir. She'll like that." As they walked away, Lila waved. "Bye, Mr. Shiny Eyes." Zirek stood in the hall speechless for a moment, then smiled quietly to himself. For the first time in years, his home didn't feel empty. It felt alive. Night fell over Zirek Talon's mansion, and the stars shimmered beyond the glass walls like diamonds floating in the Black Sea. The alien billionaire stood alone in his study, surrounded by silence and memories. The last few days had changed something inside him, something he could no longer ignore. The mansion, once a place of isolation and cold perfection, now felt alive with small signs of humanity. He found himself waiting to hear the sound of Ethan's tools or the laughter of the little girl who called him Mr. Shiny Eyes. That night, Zirek couldn't sleep. He wandered through the corridors, his mind heavy but his heart strangely light. He ended up near the lower repair wing where Ethan usually worked. The lights were dim, but a faint glow came from the workshop. Curiosity tugged at him. He stepped closer and looked inside. There, under the soft blue light of the maintenance lamps, Ethan was working again. His daughter, Lila, was asleep in a chair nearby, wrapped in his jacket. And in front of him lay a small object, Zyrek's wife's old music box, the one that had stopped playing years ago. Zirek froze in the doorway. He hadn't asked Ethan to repair it yet. The human had taken it quietly, perhaps hoping to fix it as a gesture of gratitude. Ethan's hands moved gently, almost reverently, as if he were touching something sacred, his brow furrowed in concentration. Every so often he would glance at Lila, making sure she was warm. Then he adjusted a small gear and whispered, "Come on, don't give up on me now." Zirek's chest tightened. Those were the same words Ethan had used for the broken bots, the same tone he used when speaking to people. He didn't just fix metal. He revived what others had forgotten. After a few more moments, a soft click echoed through the room. Ethan held his breath, then slowly turned the winding key. The music box whirred, sputtered, and then, miraculously, it played. A delicate tune filled the air, one Zirek hadn't heard in years. The melody was soft, trembling, and hauntingly familiar. It was the lullaby his wife used to hum before she died. The sound hit him like a storm. For a long moment, Zirek just stood there, frozen as emotion surged inside him. Grief, joy, memory. Ethan looked up and froze when he saw him. "Sir, I didn't mean to intrude," he said quickly. "I found the box and thought maybe I could—" Zirek raised a hand to stop him. His voice, when it came, was low but steady. "How did you know that tune?" Ethan shook his head. "I didn't, sir. I just followed the parts. It fixed itself once the gears aligned." Zirek stepped forward, his eyes shimmering faintly with golden light. "No, Mr. Cole, you didn't fix it. You brought it back to life." Ethan stood quietly, unsure what to say. Lila stirred in her sleep, and Zirek looked at her small face, peaceful and innocent. A strange warmth spread through him, a feeling he hadn't allowed himself to feel for decades. He turned back to Ethan. "You've shown me something no fortune, no empire ever could," Zirek said softly. "You reminded me that even in a galaxy full of machines and wealth, it's the smallest acts of kindness that truly matter." Ethan lowered his head. "I only did what anyone would do, sir." Zirek shook his head gently. "No, most wouldn't. You did." The billionaire moved closer to the sleeping child, his towering form suddenly gentle. He reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from Lila's forehead. "She's lucky," Zirek whispered. "Not because of what you have, but because of who you are." Ethan swallowed hard, emotion rising in his throat. "Thank you, sir." Zirek straightened and looked around his vast mansion. "This place has been full of life for years," he said quietly. "But it never truly lived until you came." Ethan tried to speak, but Zirek continued. "From now on, you'll no longer be a worker here. You'll live here with your daughter. This is your home now, too." Ethan's eyes widened. "Sir, I can't—" "You can," Zirek interrupted. "And you will. Consider it my first act of gratitude and redemption." The human nodded slowly, unable to hide the tears forming in his eyes. As Zirek turned to leave, The soft melody from the music box continued to play, filling the mansion with warmth and memory. He paused at the door and looked back one last time. Ethan had sat beside his daughter, holding her hand, the faint smile of peace on his face, and in that moment, Zirek Talon, the richest being in the galaxy, finally understood what true wealth meant. Not power, not technology, but heart.